All right, let's just jump straight into this. But hey, really quick, this explainer is brought to you by CertFuel. Look, if you're completely exhausted from banging your head against the wall trying to study for the Series 99, they've actually got exactly what you need. We're talking a full course, adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards that literally learn what topics you're struggling with, and unlimited practice exams that are weighted just like the real deal. So definitely go check them out at certfuel.com. Anyway, let's get into the good stuff.
Welcome to Ollie the Ops Associate's extraordinarily chaotic day. So, Ollie is our recurring hero for today, and let me tell you, right now, he is absolutely sweating through his collared shirt. Why? Well, because keeping a firm's accounts fully compliant isn't just some one-and-done deal you do when opening the account. No way. It is a grueling, daily grind of maintenance, updates, and non-stop monitoring. So today, we're going to walk a mile in Ollie's shoes to really nail down these exam concepts so you don't have to break a sweat on test day. Okay, here is Ollie's incredibly frantic to-do list for today. Number 1, fix Cara's records. 2, figure out who Cara actually is. 3, handle the ghosting protocol. 4, deal with his own outside accounts. And 5, we'll do a 5 p.m. rapid-fire recap. Let's go. Starting right off with task 1, fix Cara's records. So I want you to meet Cara, the client. Cara changes her mailing address about as often as most people change their socks, which totally triggers Ollie's strict record-keeping duties. But what actually happens to her old data? Well, Ollie doesn't just toss Cara's old address straight into the shredder. Nope, he has to track 2 entirely distinct clocks here. If Cara simply updates her info, the clock starts on the exact date of that update. But for her final original record, that clock doesn't even start ticking until she completely closes her account. So the absolutely crucial thing to remember here is the number 6. Memorize this one single number, okay? Both of those retention periods last for at least 6 years. So Ollie's got to keep the replaced records for at least 6 years after the update, and he's got to keep the final records for at least 6 years after the account officially closes. But watch out, this is a massive cognitive speed bump. The exam is absolutely going to try and bait you into confusing the starting triggers for these timelines. Do not mix them up. The 6-year clock for a replaced record starts the very moment it gets replaced, but the 6-year clock for the final record starts the moment the account is closed. So it's different triggers, but the exact same 6-year minimum. Moving on to task 2. Figure out who Cara is. All right, so Ollie finally fixed the records, but now the firm's customer identification program, the CIP, is completely failing to verify who Cara actually is. I want you to literally pause the explainer right here. Think about it. Ollie cannot verify Cara's identity. Does he have to automatically close her account? Go ahead and say your answer out loud right now. The answer is a loud, resounding no. Automatic closure is a complete myth. I actually love this one because it trips up so many test takers. An unresolved identity issue does not force one single robotic automatic response from the firm. Right, so instead of some automatic closure, the firm is going to rely entirely on its own written customer identification program procedures. And those written procedures have to specifically outline 4 key decisions. Number 1, when the firm should just flat out refuse to open the account. 2, the terms under which Cara can actually still conduct transactions while the firm keeps trying to verify her. 3, when the firm should finally just throw in the towel and close the account after all those failed attempts. And 4, exactly when the firm needs to file a suspicious activity report. And boom, here is your next exam trap. The test writers love to throw a scenario at you where verification fails. And you can bet one of the multiple choice options will be immediately close the account. Do not fall for it. The firm's response depends completely on the specific circumstances and their written procedures. Remember, failed verification does not automatically equal closure.
On to task 3, the ghosting protocol.
So now Cara has completely ghosted Ollie. Let's just say she's living off the grid in some haunted mansion. But she left funds behind, and that triggers the rules of escheatment, which is basically just moving abandoned property over to a state government. But notice the contrast in responsibilities here. Ollie can't just immediately hand Cara's money over to the state. The firm has to try and contact the owner first. But if Ollie's frantic carrier pigeons fail, well, the state eventually steps in and takes over. And here's another exam trap for you. Do not assume there's some kind of nationwide dormancy period. There is absolutely no single, federal, nationwide deadline or remittance rule for escheatment. The whole thing is dictated purely by individual state unclaimed property laws. So if a test question asks you about escheatment timelines, just remember that the specific state's law is what sets those rules.
Task 4. Ollie's outside account.
Okay, now let's talk about Ollie's own problems. He wants to trade some stocks, so he has to sort out his outside accounts with Sam, the supervisor. And we really need to draw a hard line between two different scenarios here. Is Ollie opening a brand new account today, or did he already have this account before he got hired? Because for a new covered account, Ollie has to get Sam's prior written consent, and he has to notify the outside institution in writing before he even opens it. But what if the account already existed? I mean, he obviously couldn't get prior consent from Sam for something he did 3 years ago.
And that brings us to our second big number of the day, 30. For an account that predates his employment, Ollie has exactly 30 calendar days after becoming associated with his new firm to get Sam's written consent to maintain that account and to notify the outside institution in writing about his new job. 30 calendar days. Lock that one in your brain.
All right, time for another pattern interrupt. Pause the explainer again. How does Sam the supervisor actually get Ollie's trade data so he can monitor him? Does the outside firm just automatically start spamming Sam with Ollie's trade statements? Go ahead, answer it out loud.
Gotcha. This is our final exam trap for the day. The outside executing firm does not automatically send duplicate confirmations or statements just because they know Ollie works in the industry. That would be chaos. Sam the supervisor actually has to make a written request for those duplicate records. Once the employer requests it in writing, then, and literally only then, does the executing member start sending over the transaction data. Finally, task 5, the 5 p.m. rapid-fire recap. Look at the clock. It's 5 p.m. and Ollie actually survived. But before you clock out, let's run through these high-speed, virtual flashcards of the most testable points we just covered. Recap number 1, record clocks. You've got to preserve replaced account records for at least 6 years after the update and preserve final records for at least 6 years after the account closes entirely. Recap number 2. Customer identification program failures do not equal automatic closure. The firm relies entirely on its written procedures to determine when to refuse opening an account, how to handle transactions during verification, when to finally close it, and when to file a suspicious activity report. Recap number 3, ghosting and escheatment. Yes, the firm definitely has to try contacting the owner first, but ultimately there is no nationwide dormancy rule. Escheatment rules and timelines are dictated entirely by state law. And finally, recap number 4, outside accounts. Pre-existing outside accounts need written employer consent within 30 calendar days of association. And if the employer actually wants to see those trades, they must make a written request for duplicate records. Okay, you now have the exact blueprint to bypass the sneaky traps the test writers are going to set for you. So the only question left is, how confidently are you going to crush these questions when exam day finally gets here?